The regular season is heating up, new stars are emerging, and that means more opportunities to win up to 25 times your cash on Prize Picks, the most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Just select 2 or more players, pick more or less on their projection on a wide variety of stats, and place your entry. It's that easy. Let it fly to turn $10 into $250 with just a few taps. Easy gameplay, quick withdrawals, and injury insurance on your picks are what make Prize Picks the #1 daily fantasy sports app. Watch your favorite players and get paid doing it this basketball season. See your entries make progress during the game or make new entries for the second half and the fourth quarter. 3-pointers, assists, rebounds, and everything in between are yours for the taking. Join the Prize Picks community of more than 7 million players who have already signed up. Right now, Prize Picks will match your first deposit of up to $100. Just download the Prize Picks app and use code GET100. That's code GET100 on Prize Picks for a first deposit match of up to $100. Prize Picks. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy.
So our podcast is called Right and Wrong.
Are these your notes?
These
Are these your notes about what we're going to say?
Anything
Nailed it.
is the short answer.
So how many novels did you not finish?
Oh my God, so many.
It was perfect. What's she talking about? This is nonsense.
Ooh, a spicy question. I love it.
This is it, guys. The big secret to getting published is you have to write a good book. You heard it here first. Hello and welcome back to the Right and Wrong podcast. I'm Jamie, and joining me today is ex-detective of 30 years, consultant and author, Stuart Gibbon. Hi, Stuart. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Jamie. How are you doing?
I'm good, yeah. How are you doing?
Very well, thanks. Thanks very much for inviting me. It's great to get a chance to have a chat about what I do and let people know how to get hold of me and all that sort of thing. So looking forward to chatting with you.
Yeah, well, I'm very excited. I've never had a sort of consultant of your genre, I guess, on the show. So let's start off with that straight away. A detective for 30 years. What was it that drew you into publishing and writing consultancy after that?
Well, believe it or not, I'd always liked reading books anyway, and I used to always read a mixture of true crime and crime fiction generally. And I was reading a crime fiction book once, quite some time ago now, and I'm sure we all do this, but if there's something you know a little bit about and you're watching it on telly and something isn't quite done the way you think it ought to be done, I'm one of these people that tries not to, but it kind of leaps up and says, hang on, that would never happen like that. And that's how it started for me. I was reading a crime fiction book and there was just something in there that kind of didn't really ring true. And obviously my previous work in the police, I kind of dealt with various different bits and pieces. And I just had a flick through the book and I found the acknowledgements section. I just wondered, I wonder if they sought any advice before they put it in. I mean, it wasn't the end of the world. It doesn't, you put what you want in a book, and sometimes if you've got too much procedure, it spoils it anyway. So you don't want too much. But this was just something that I thought, well, that's quite interesting. I wonder, and there was nothing in there. And it just one of those sort of light bulb moments. I'd left the police not that long before. I'd had a bit of a break, recharged batteries. And I just thought, I wonder if there's any kind of opportunity here for me I had all this stuff in my head from experience and knowledge. Can I use it to good effect, sort of thing? And I just kind of cold emailed people, sent emails all over the place to various writers, mainly crime writers. Contacted the Crime Writers Association, which I'm so pleased I did, because there's a wonderful lady who was the chair at the time. And after a little while, she came back to me and said, I'm writing a crime fiction book at the minute. I could do with some help. And that's kind of how it took off. It all went a bit quiet for a while, and I thought, there's obviously no real need for this. But then suddenly things started to build up, and I'm at a position now, quite a few years later, where I've got a really fabulous sort of client database, if you like. There's best-selling authors, but there's also people who are literally just starting their writing journey, who have no idea on procedures and things like that, but they want to write crime, or they want something with the police in it. How does this work? What happens if someone goes missing? Who deals with it? What do they do? What do they not do? All those sort of questions that sometimes I guess people maybe struggle a little bit with if they have no experience of it. And that's kind of how it developed. So now I've got my own I just work solo most of the time. And I have authors contacting me through various means, and we just, I find out what they need and what they want. And to be honest with you, Jamie, sometimes they don't want the the detail to include in the book. They just want to understand it for themselves. You know, if I explain to them how a murder case is investigated, you know, as best I can and as quickly as I can, which isn't easy, but you can do it. Once they understand that, they know what they can and can't include in the book if they want to go down that route. So sometimes it's literally just a case of, you know, you tell me what would happen in reality and I'll write the book. And of course, as I've already mentioned, you don't want a book full of procedure because it would be a really dull book. But what is actually a golden nugget is if you've got something in there like a bit of terminology or reference to a certain rank or a certain unit or department, or just something that, you know, is authentic and rings true, because you can guarantee that crime fans will pick these things up, and if they recognise it as genuine, it'll help the you know, it'll engage the readers without question.
Yeah. So with the consultancy and when you work with people, is it sort of exclusively UK crime because that's where your sort of expertise is?
It is, yeah, but most of the time it is. I've had writers contact me from Australia, from the USA, from Germany. Obviously, I'm going to struggle with their own procedures, but actually, when you talk about the generics of investigating a crime, it's pretty much the same universally. It's not that much different. Obviously, the language is different, and the ranks and the departments are very much different. But we've got that in the UK. I mean, I have a lot to do with writers in Scotland and England and Wales are so different. Scotland have their own system, they have their own processes and procedures. There's a massive piece of legislation called PACE, the Police and Criminal Evidence Act, which we use in England and Wales and parts of Ireland, which is basically everything the police do around detaining people and interviewing them and search warrants and things like that. It's all under PACE. PACE doesn't exist in Scotland. So it's even Scotland is a challenge for me when I get an author from Scotland saying, I want to base this book in Scotland. I've never worked as a police officer in Scotland. So it just shows you, even just across a border in the same part of the UK as such, it's a challenge. But yeah, I do get people from other countries. I've managed to signpost a couple of authors to my equivalent in their country, if you like. There's an ex coroner and detective in the USA that I've had some contact with via social media, and he's happy to answer questions. So I've built up a little kind of a network in one or two other countries as well. But most of my work, of course, is UK based, and it's UK authors who are setting their book, you know, either in a fictional place somewhere or in a real place with just a few of the details changed.
Oh, okay, sure. And it's nice that you said that you enjoyed to read and probably watch crime dramas on television and such. It's nice that you've managed to sort of marry the thing you enjoy doing with your sort of experience from work.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, and as I say, I mean, I'm looking for things that from a previous work experience that other people might not pick up, and so it doesn't spoil the enjoyment of watching it for me or listening to it. But I think when I say sometimes to writers, they a lot of their experience will be based on what they've seen on TV or maybe heard on the radio, and because it's say, for example, a TV drama, it's normally an hour or 2 hours, and normally the bad guy or guys or girls get caught at the end of it, and it's very much different from reality. So you need, when you're writing a fictional story, you need to include, you need to have some artistic license, because, as I say, it will be quite dull. Because one of my jobs was being in charge of murder cases for quite a few years in the East Midlands, and a lot of my time was spent managing things. I was a detective. I was a senior detective. I had all the powers and the rank, but actually I didn't have much hands-on, if that makes sense. I was I kind of liken it to the conductor of an orchestra. You're in charge of lots of different people, and you're asking people to do things on your behalf, and you're making really important decisions that could go right or wrong. But actually you're reliant upon many, many different people to do the work for you. Whereas on telly, you normally see you have a lead detective who's the character, and they do everything. They go charging around, arresting people and interviewing people. So it's a little bit different from that point of view. But I certainly enjoy watching them. And of course, these days, when people say to me, how do I find out about the police? There are some really cracking fly in the wall type programs on TV that you can actually tune into, and you can follow a murder case, or you can see a suspect being interviewed in a police station. And that's actually how it happens in reality. So for all your finer details, it's absolutely brilliant stuff.
Oh.
There's lots of things on the internet as well that you can tap into, just to find out how it actually works, and then just try and find that balance between having a little bit of authenticity but making it exciting for the reader, and having the suspense and the plot and the characters all linked into that. And it's fun. I love doing what I'm doing now, and as I say, I would say in a different sort of way, I'm probably as busy now as I was when I was, trying to solve murders and other crimes, really, which is kind of ironic because I retired from that, the police service in order not to be so busy. But as it happens, I'm a different sort of busy, but just as happy. Just as
busy
happy.
Can be good. Busy can be good.
Yeah, very much so. Yeah.
So still reading, still watching. What are the most common mistakes that you see in books and television?
I think, to be honest with you, there's two. I would say two, Jamie. Two main ones.
Yeah.
One is the way that police officers talk to each other and engage with each other. You tend to find when you read books and you see on TV, it's quite kind of formal. People talk to each other using their last names and things like that, and it's sort of orders are barked out like military style fashion. Sometimes in reality it's nothing like that really. There is obviously discipline and there is respect amongst ranks and things like that. But actually, most of the people who talked to me when I was in charge of murder cases, although I was sometimes called sir, which isn't a problem because that's what sometimes people call you. I was also called boss and gov, slang terms. But I was never called DCI Gibbon. Excuse me, DCI Gibbon. Could I have a word with you? That just never happened. It's not as it's not as formal as that. And you tend to find you sometimes see that on television that and talking to people, I would never dream of referring to somebody, whatever rank or whatever role they were performing, by their last name. Excuse me, Smith or Jones or whatever. Can you come into my office? That doesn't happen. Most of the officers and staff that I work with, we were all on first name terms. And you used to call them by their first name. So I'd say that's one of the key areas, the way that I think people think it's far more formal than it is. And actually it isn't really in reality. People tend to get on fairly well. And yes, there is a time and a place for shouting and falling out with people, as in every kind of career and every job.
Yeah.
But it's not as formal as people actually think it is. And the other one is probably around, as I touched on a little earlier, what the person in charge actually does. It's not so much hands-on. So one of my ones where you sort of makes you cringe is if you see something on a TV drama and you see there's a body there, somebody's been murdered, and all the forensics are there, and they're all correctly dressed. They've got the white suits on, they've got the masks on, and they've got the gloves and everything else. And the crime scene tape is up, and it's all cordoned off, and everything is beautifully presented and secured as it should be in reality. And then you get a detective or somebody else charging in with their size 9s and they're wearing their suit, just a normal suit, and they're bending over the body and they're having a little feel here and a touch there, and they're lifting things up and they're interfering with the sort of evidence in the scene, which again is kind of a big no-no. And it's, but as you say, you've got to try. I always say to people, try and find the balance if you can. Don't write it really dry, because it will be dry. But just try and mention every now and again about the crime scene tape, because it will be there. Then maybe I always talk about the senses. What can you smell when you're there? What can you see? What can you hear? The crime scene tape fluttering in the wind and things like that. Just little bits like that mention. Open it up for the reader. The reader can imagine that scene, but little mentions of things like the tape and the forensic outfits and things like that, just add to the authenticity and make it a much more interesting read, I think.
Well, now you're really onto the writing craft there, because I've heard that many times where it's describing a scene, just think of the senses. So that's, you've really lined those two up really well.
Yeah, definitely. And again, blood is one, being a bit gory, but of course blood does occur in these sort of crimes. Mm-hmm. And the either the taste, if someone's been injured and they can taste the blood, it's that metallic coppery taste, or even the smell of it. If there's a lot of it, then that sort of thing. It can also and you do sometimes see people referring to that in their books, and I think although it's very vivid and it's very very raw, it actually adds a little bit to the for the benefit of the reader who isn't there but is imagining that they are.
Yeah, because that's something that most people won't have experienced, is there being so much blood that you could smell it.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm feeling a bit woozy thinking.
Yeah, sorry about that.
That's all right. So, is there a television series or a book or a movie that you think gets it almost all correct and kind of nails it?
I think, to be honest, I think things have improved even in the last few years to what they were at one point. And I think the reason for that is that a lot of these programs now tend to recognise that they need somebody there to help them get these things right, or at least tell them how it should be done, and then they can, as we said earlier, they can work around that. So I think a lot of the programs these days tend to have their own advisors. Often they are either serving or former police officers, or whatever it is. If it's something to do with firearms, it might be somebody with a bit of military training or firearms training. So there's the specific skills that somebody would need, skills and knowledge that somebody would need. So a lot of them are very good these days. There's one that's called Line of Duty, which is very, very popular. It's probably a little bit over the top in terms of what goes on, but of course it's drama, so it needs to be in a way. But the actual processes and procedures and the terminology, it made me smile actually, because I don't know whether you watch it, Jamie, but
I have seen some series.
Yeah, the last series that started, the first episode. I mean, I knew what was going on, but my other half had no idea, because they just launched into a tirade of acronyms, literally right at the beginning. So they were talking about things like CHIS, and I mean, a lot of people don't know what a CHIS is. A CHIS is basically what used to be called an informant. It's somebody that gives information to the police and is sometimes given money or another reward. So it's like a grass or a snout. They're slang terms. Yeah. And they kept talking about cheers, this and this and this. And I was sat there and I kind of kept up with it, but it was hard work. So and I realised that for somebody that was watching it either for the first time or had no idea, and sure enough, the next day on kind of social media, it was just full of what on earth was that about? They should give us a list of acronyms so that we know what they're talking about. And that was just, but Line of Duty is quite good. There have been some, there's one called Unforgotten. And there's one called The Bay. The Bay is more about family liaison officers, but it's about a murder inquiry. And that's pretty good. And again, when you tend, and again, like I do in books, I tend to look at the acknowledgements page quite a bit in books of authors that I've either never worked with before, just to see whether they do have somebody that gives them advice or not. And not everybody does, of course, they don't need to. But I do the same on the TV. So when the credits come on at the end, I'm often kind of pausing it to see whether they've got a police advisor and maybe who it is and that sort of thing. And you do find that you get the same names cropping up from, time and again. But I think that makes a difference, because those people can give you the and going back even further, I don't know if you remember a program called The Bill.
Yes.
Yeah. Which is I mean, I love The Bill, and it still comes on now on some of the TV channels. You can watch it on catch up and that sort of thing. And they again had I've done a bit of work with a chap who interviews the cast that used to play the certain parts in The Bill. And you then find out that they actually used to go physically into the police stations to see what it was like for themselves. So they used to go into the cell and have the door locked and see what it smelt like and what it looked like and what it felt like. And they used to have police officers that were actually serving officers, and some of them even used to go out on patrol with them just to see what it was like. And that's kind of taking it to the next level, I guess. But it's a sort of, then that what you get is real, and it just adds to that little bit of kind of drama, and I think it just makes it better all round, to be honest with you.
Yeah, definitely.
But there are some great programs on there at the moment. There's more and more. There just seem to be, every time you kind of turn TV on, it's another fictional one, and I've noticed quite recently there've been a few that are based on books as well. There's a lot of books that are being made into dramas now, which is great, really. Just to see how that compares. I know some of the authors aren't too keen on it, because it's their baby and it's their book, and they might want certain people to, if you had a choice, who would you want to play the lead character in your book, kind of thing. That might not always work out, but it's, I mean, it must be great for people to actually see it on the screen, whether it's cinema or TV. It must be fabulous.
Yeah. Well, it's good to know that TV's getting more and more accurate, and same with film and hopefully books too. So if we dial it back towards you and the service that you provide, how does it work? So from agreeing to work with a new client, what's step one of the process?
Step one really is probably agreeing how we're going to do it. What exactly the writer or the author needs from me, how deep they want to go, how much knowledge they need. So it's kind of like a chat. I mean, the way I operate, when I started off doing this, it was all on email. So I'd used to get email from the author, and it still works that way to a certain extent. And we'd swap emails, and they would send me either a list of questions or, which happens more often now, part of their actual work. So say there's 3 or 4 chapters on police procedure that's really the main bulk of the police procedure. They might send me that whole chunk of work. I have been asked to read the whole book before, quite a few times. Now, obviously, that takes me a lot longer. Yeah. And sometimes there's bits in there that aren't particularly relevant to what I do. But even so, I'm happy to do it. And then I just offer the advice back and give them feedback on either answer the questions or give them feedback. Since the pandemic, things have tweaked ever so slightly. So I do quite a lot more work on the phone now. So I'm happy to chat. I could cover a lot more work on the phone than I can do via email, because I'm not the greatest of typists and it takes time to put these things together. So email, and now I've launched into the world of Zoom and Skype and all those sort of wonderful platforms. So there's various different options there. And we kind of go from there. I answer the questions or provide the feedback, and we'll probably have several more sessions going backwards and forwards, maybe until that writer is happy with what they've got. They might have extra questions. They might go away and write some more, then come back to me again. And often they'll want me to look at what they've written and just say, what do you think of this? Have I understood it correctly? Is this right? Is there any more that we can add? Sometimes they need help with actually the plot. Maybe the characters, if they're police officers, what sort of person would this be? Have I got it right? So we sometimes go a little bit deeper. And as I mentioned earlier, Jamie, sometimes they just want to know how it works in reality, and what comes out at the end of the day. There might not be a lot of procedure in there, but as long as they understand how it would work, it gives them the opportunity to write it how they want to write it. And that's kind of how it. And it's really rewarding for me, because I get to read the book. So, I'll buy the book when I find out it's coming out. And it's nice to see. Sometimes I get obviously acknowledged in there as having helped them. And also I can pick the bits out when I read the book where maybe I've given the advice, I remember that bit and I remember that. So, and it's just really nice. It's rewarding. It helps me to build up contacts and friends who've become, friends over a period of time that I've worked with them I worked with them, for example, on their first book, and now they're on the third or fourth. And they just keep, they come back to me each time. And there's others who will just want a little bit of advice here and there. And then that's it. They go and they write the book. And then, they may come back in the future. They may not do. But it's great. I really love it. And obviously I'd sometimes go pre-pandemic, and hopefully we'll be back to that, to writing festivals and things like that, and do talks on true crime. So there's opportunities there as well. And it's just opened up a whole new kind of world for me that I never dreamt I'd be, involved in. Whilst I was in the police, Well,
it sounds great. So it's much more of a sort of personalized sort of thing where you work out what's needed and like how much you're going to do, as opposed to there's not like a kind of rigid structure to the package that you're offering.
No, not really. You're absolutely right. I think flexibility is the key, because every writer is different. Yeah. Every writer wants something different. And they obviously drive the whole process. They tell me what they want from me. And if I can deliver it, I will do. It's a challenge sometimes, because I'm getting asked questions about things that I might not have personally dealt with within the police. But I've got a pretty good range of networks and contacts and various other resources that I can dip in and out of as well. So I think the great thing for me is keeping my brain cells working at quite a high speed as well, because I'm always thinking about the questions that I'm asked, and making sure that I answer them in the right way, and making sure that I'm approachable to people. So, even if they've just got the odd question, this is not something, my world is called GIB, or GIB consultancy. And when people hear the word consultancy, I think they think, wow, like you just said, they're structured, and it is to a certain extent, but it's so very informal. And if someone wants to email me and ask me a question, I just answer the question. It's not a case of you have to jump through hoops and you've got all these different things to do. You speak with me if you do speak, or you communicate with me. And if I can help people, that's just what I want to do, really, to be honest.
And beyond the direct consultancy work, you also have a range of books that you co-authored them with Stephen Wade.
That's right. Yeah, I did. That came about. I was in 2015. I was chairing a panel of crime writers, which was interesting at a literary festival. And one of them was called Stephen Wade, born in Yorkshire, brilliant man, writes true crime, has done for years. And way back in the 1800s, 1900s, he covers all this many, many different periods in time. We got chatting, we had a coffee, we got on really well. And I think a conversation one day, he just said, "Would you fancy writing a book?" And I kind of laughed because I thought, well, I've never written a book. I wouldn't know where to start. But long story short, we said, well, we don't think there's anything on the bookshelf that would give crime writers in particular, but not just crime writers, true crime fans, what they actually need, which is information about murder cases, forensics, the police station detention process, all those sort of things. And we managed to, Stephen had a publisher already called Roger, who's brilliant, and he's a one-man band, and we approached Roger and we put it to him and he said, yeah, let's have a go. Let's go for it. And we wrote the Crime Writers Case book, which came out end of 2017. Covers everything from forensic pathology, DNA, forensics, murder, as I say, all sorts of things. And it was really popular. And in fact, it's still now our most popular book. So we've went on from there to write quite a few books, one about the specific role of the detective. And then we wrote a few little guides on various specific subjects like criminal offences such as burglary and robbery. And they're all really for the writer or somebody that wants to know a bit more about how things work in reality, or just the true crime genre, which, again, the fan base is, of course, huge. And we've got another book coming out at the end of this month, which is called Catching a Killer, which is literally from the first phone call to the court process, what actually happens in reality, both from a contemporary and obviously a historical perspective. And that comes out at the end of the month. So everything about murder, which is probably what I get asked about the most. And it's probably the one area of crime that people tend to be most interested in. So again, we're hoping that when that comes out, that people will be interested in it. But yeah, we've written 6 books in a reasonably short period of time. People like them. They seem to like them. We get good feedback. And it's something you can have on your bookshelf that you can just dip in and out of if you want to. If you're looking for the answers to certain questions, or even just for a bit of inspiration, there's loads of case studies in these books from true crimes either that I've dealt with myself or that people will probably be familiar with. And it's just giving people the opportunity to give them some inspiration if they're struggling a little bit, or to just find the facts if they're looking for them.
Yeah, awesome. So anyone listening, if you're not ready for a full sort of direct consultancy, you always have these books are always a quick, easier option, a bit more approachable perhaps for some people. So, Stuart, have you ever had the inclination to write yourself?
I have,
something
yeah.
fictional?
Yeah, I have. And lots of people have asked me that question, to be honest. And the answer I give is I'll never say that I won't. But I've not gone down that route yet. And there are a lot, I'm sure you're aware, Jamie, there are a lot of ex-police officers that are doing just that at the moment, and with great success as well. It's just I've never gone that way yet. I've stuck with the true crime side of things and the consultancy work. I'll never say that I won't do it, but it's not on my bucket list at the minute. Shall we say that?
Never say never.
Never say never. No, definitely, yeah.
Amazing. So that brings us on to the final question, which is, Stuart, if you were stranded on a desert island with one book, which book would it be?
Okay. Well, as you can imagine, in a pretty lengthy and police career that I had, I've seen lots of things, some of which I can never unsee. Yeah. But I think even I would be pretty freaked out on a desert island. In fact, I know I would be. So the way I've approached this one is to go slightly kind of random and think that I'm going to be a bit concerned about being on this desert island. So why don't I go up the ante a bit and frighten myself even more, so that anything else that happens from then on I'm going to be able to manage. So one of my favourite authors, has always been and will always be James Herbert. It's somebody I just immersed myself in from a relatively young age. And James Herbert, as I'm sure you probably will know, wrote a trilogy of stories about rats, which is one of my kind of... I don't particularly like rats, but
okay.
Apologies to those who do, but that's just not one of my faves. So his first book was called, funny enough, The Rats. Terrifying book, which I've lost count of the amount of times that I've read. So if I'm allowed a trilogy, I'll take all three with me. But if it's strict rules and regulations, I'm going to have a copy of The Rats. I'm going to read it as soon as I get there, and hopefully anything else that happens from then on in, I'm going to be able to manage.
Amazing. You're just going to get all the scare out at once.
That's it, hopefully. Either a kill or cure will be the approach, I think. Yeah.
Brilliant. Well, that's a very original answer. I've never had anyone approach it that way before. Amazing. Well, thank you so much, Stuart. Thanks for coming on the show and sharing your experiences and telling us all about what you're up to sort of in the consultancy publishing world.
That's great. Thanks, Jamie, for inviting me. I've really enjoyed it, and I hope your listeners do too.
Yes, and for everyone listening, if you want to keep up with what Stuart's doing, you can follow him on Facebook and Twitter at GIB Consultancy, or head over to the website www.gibconsultancy.co.uk. To make sure you don't miss an episode of this podcast, follow us on Twitter at Right and Wrong UK, or on Instagram at Right and Wrong Podcast. Thanks again to Stuart for coming on, and thanks to everyone listening. We'll catch you in the next episode.